Hello and welcome. In Unit 1 Legal Studies, you spend some time learning where our laws come from. If you need a refresher on that, ask your teachers to screen the Magna Carta video. It's just a short, entertaining and very informative video about the origins of our legal system. I'm very pleased that you have chosen legal studies as part of your Year 11 course and hope you're enjoying it. But let me dispel a myth. Many secondary students believe that legal studies is only for those planning to study law at university, and that's very far from true. Many decades ago, an Australian-born judge, Lord Atkin, about whom you may already have heard, told students in Birmingham that law should be taught as a Year 12 subject because a knowledge of the law and its administration should be part of the ordinary equipment of the good and efficient citizen. He'd be very pleased that the Victorian secondary curriculum includes legal studies and civics and citizenship, the second of which has a substantial law component, and he'd be very pleased that we are meeting today. What I'm going to do now is outline some of the ways in which you can prepare yourselves to finish the year really well in legal studies. Now, you might well ask yourself the question, what should I be doing now? Well, one of the things you should be doing now is having a look at the study design. If you have a copy of the study design, use that as your Bible. It really is the basis for your preparation, because you can't be tested on anything that's not in the study design. Now, in the handout that you will have received, or which may be up on a screen, that handout contains the study design segments for Units 1 and 2. So you've got that in front of you, and you can use that as a knowledge audit. You can use that to tick off what you know and perhaps what you need to do a bit more work on. Now, last semester, you spent quite a bit of time assessing how the operation of the legal system can be assessed according to, and a slide will come up now and give you those three terms, according to the principles of justice: fairness, equality, and access. Now let's have a look at each of these. Fairness is the first principle of justice. It requires that people be treated impartially and receive just treatment or behaviour without favouritism or any form of discrimination. Think of the COVID vaccinations. Everyone was entitled to a free vaccination. But if the information about the vaccinations was only provided in English, many people would not know about it if they spoke only and read only another language. The government published the information in a range of languages, which meant that it was a fair process. If someone steals a car and is subsequently caught and charged with theft, that person, to be treated fairly, should be able to understand the court process, have the opportunity to present their defence, and have the opportunity to disprove the prosecution case. Let's have a look at equality. Equality is the second principle of justice. Everyone should be treated the same regardless of their personal characteristics or beliefs, such as age, gender, religion or ethnicity, cultural background, disability or sexuality. Everyone should be treated equally before the law. No one should have an advantage or disadvantage because of a personal attribute or characteristic. There should be no bias or prejudice in the legal process, and the person who decides the case should be completely impartial. Access. This is the third principle of justice. People should be able to pursue their case in court. Assistance should be provided for those people who otherwise could not afford the process, or at least not afford to pursue their case. As I've said, those three principles appear throughout the course as you assess how the legal system lives up to those principles, not only in Units 1 and 2, but in Units 3 and 4 as well. You've continued doing that, as I said, in Unit 2, and you'll do so next year. Now, topic notes. It's very important that as you work your way through Units 1 and 2, you should be making topic notes as you go. Don't wait until the topic's completely finished before you decide to make some notes on the particular topic that you've been studying. They will be invaluable. The topic notes will be invaluable when you are revising in a few weeks' time. Now, a slide will pop up talking about case notes. Now, this might seem a little bit strange. FIDS, F-I-D-S, what on earth does that mean? Well, as the slide tells you, these letters stand for fact, issues, decision, and significance. When you're recording case notes, that is, a case that you've studied in class, it's not a bad idea to make a specific set of notes on that particular case. I did that when I was a law student a long time ago. I used to do it on a card about the size of an envelope. And I'd write down the facts. In other words, who did what to whom? What was the case all about? And the second point is issues. What does the court have to decide? What does the court have to work out? What does the court have to sort its way through? The third point is a decision. In other words, who won? Who was the winner in the particular case? And fourthly, significance. Now, this means a couple of different things. Significance can mean why we're studying the case. Why is it important? Is this case one that created a precedent? Is it one that did away with a precedent? In what way is it significant to our study? Back to the point I made a moment ago. Why are we studying this particular case? Why is it important to the course that we're currently doing? Now, a little while ago, I mentioned the handout. Have a good look at the handout which accompanies this webinar. Your teachers will have printed it for you or put it up on a screen for you. Have a look at what it contains. I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes talking about it. As I said before, it touches on matters of what I should be doing now. And I've mentioned pretty well all of those up to this point. It then goes on to look at common task words used in task questions. A word like analyze, or apply, or discuss, or distinguish, or illustrate. Familiarize yourself with those terms. There's quite a few of them on that sheet, and you won't encounter all of them in any test that you might be doing, but you need to be aware of what those task words really require you to do. For example, if you're asked to define something, you're asked to give the exact meaning of something, whatever it might be, some principle of law. If you're asked to distinguish, it might ask you to recognize or note the differences, or to note the distinctive characteristics of some particular element that you've been studying. So have a good look at those common task words that are used in task questions. And if you don't understand them, that's what your teachers are there for. Now, the knowledge handout, or the knowledge audit rather, is preceded by a question. Are the following aspects of the course familiar to you? Could you write about each of them? And there are 3 columns. First column says yes, and if you put a tick there, you're telling yourself, you're reminding yourself that yes, you're really up to date on that particular element. And if you put a cross in no, then that tells you what you need to go and have a look at. And on the right-hand side in the wider column, it talks about action. What am I going to do about it? Do I ask my teacher? Do I go back to my textbook? Do I ask my friends? What do I do in order to be able to tick yes in that particular column? Now, in the handout, we've covered both units 1 and 2. Now, obviously, you're going to be more interested in unit 2, because that's what you're studying at the moment. But it's a good idea to hang on to this document because it may help you next year as well. Also in the handout is a sample case note. This one's a civil case. It's a case that you may have heard of. It's called Wilson and Bauer Media, but it goes back to 2017. So it's not one you can actually write about at the moment, but it sets out for you the facts, the issues, the decision, and the significance of the case. And in significance here, what I've written for you is this case can be used as an example in Unit 1, Area of Study 3, and Unit 2, Area of Study 2. Well, I'm sorry to say it can't. because it's now out of date. But you will have been provided with cases that you can use as examples in those two areas of study, particularly area of study 2 in Unit 2. And also it tells you about fairness, equality, and access. It explains how you can apply the principles of justice to that particular case or to any particular case. Remember, that's just an example. That's just an example of how to approach making your case notes and how to apply the principles of justice to that set of case notes. And at the back of the handout, there's a template. So you can actually do that with the cases that you've been studying. But remember, always be guided by your teachers. Really important. They'll tell you what you really need to know. Well, what does Unit 2 contain? You have been, or you will be looking at, sanctions, remedies, and rights. Sanctions apply, of course, to criminal law. In this section, you look at the way in which the criminal justice system determines the guilt or otherwise of the accused and imposes sanctions on a guilty person. Make sure your notes cover the institutions which enforce criminal law and the types of sentences which criminal courts can impose. You'll look at 2 recent criminal cases and explore the extent to which the principles of justice were or could have been achieved. The details of all of that are set out in the study design. That's sanctions, and that's criminal law. When it comes to remedies, we're talking here about civil law. In this section, you look at the remedies that may be available to a wronged party where there has been a breach of civil law, for example, defamation or trespass or nuisance. There's an example of a defamation case in the handout. We'll also look at methods of resolving disputes other than by going to court and the organisations which may help resolve those disputes. 2 recent cases involving civil disputes are to be studied. Make your case notes. The 3rd section of this unit is under the heading of rights. The rights of people in Australia are protected in a variety of ways by the Australian Constitution, the Victorian Charter of Rights and Responsibilities, and by common law, that is, judge-made law, and by acts of the state and federal parliaments. Your teacher will guide you through these and help you make a comparison with the way rights are protected in another country. You can have a look at the Victoria Law Foundation website for an article on the way in which rights are protected in South Africa, and that would be very, very helpful in answering that part of the course. You'll also consider, in the light of the comparison, how the protection of rights in Australia might be reformed. You're also expected to consider the role of an individual in taking a case to court. As this year marks the 30th anniversary of the Mabo case, your teacher may have spent some time discussing that very significant case with you. Well, that gives you some idea about what Unit 2 is all about, and I wish you well for the remainder of the year and hope to see you in 2023.